Thank you for joining Pioneer. I'm Chris with Norman Public Library Central, and this is the 11th video in our series on the Swift computer programming language. In the first 10 videos of this series, we learned the very basics of computer programming using Swift. We learned about variables, loops, and conditionals. In the next series of lectures, we're going to get much more complicated. In particular, in the next 5 lectures, I'd like to create an actual app that goes and fetches the weather from the internet and displays it on your computer. This will use APIs from the National Weather Service, as well as a whole range of Swift technologies, including optionals, exceptions, and JSON. In Lesson 10, I posed a challenge to you. I asked that you change our code from printing the days of the week to switching to using months and getting your lunch for every day of the month and printing out an entire month's worth of lunches. Did you try it? Did you run into a difficulty? Here's the big challenge in that challenge. The first change that I made to my code was I modified getLunches to take an array of integers instead of an array of strings. Then I changed days of the week to be days of the month, and I set it equal to the numbers from 1 through 30. However, I couldn't just put 1:30. I had to put that into an array constructor. Otherwise, Swift didn't understand that I wanted to use those numbers as an array instead of just as a range. Once I had constructed an array with the numbers 1 through 30 in it, I could say get lunches, and then a couple of minor changes to my printouts, and when I run my code, I now get a list of everything that I am eating for lunch in April. Did you get yours working? If so, congratulations. Since the next series of lessons is going to become progressively more challenging, I'll begin providing you with the beginning and ending source code. You'll be able to get it on Pioneer Library System's website here. So go ahead and download the code for today, lesson 11_urls.swift. I'm also going to switch away from using Xcode's playgrounds, and I'll make an actual project in Xcode. Let me show you how that works. If you're using Replit or another site, you can continue along the way you have been. I'll begin by launching Xcode. On Xcode's opening screen, I'll choose Create a new Xcode project. When you create a project, please create a Mac OS project that is a command line tool. Although some of the other options are very interesting, the code that they provide will just get on our way today. We'll call this Swift in small bytes. I work for Pioneer Library System, but of course you can make your organization name whatever you'd like. And you can put your Swift in small bytes code wherever you would like it. Let's take a quick tour of the Xcode user interface. Right now, I have several different panes open. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see 3 buttons representing the left, bottom, and right panes. In my screen right now, I'm showing you the left and right panes open and the bottom pane closed. We'll be changing that configuration often as we go through Xcode. In the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you see the play button. The play button is how you will run your code. Below that play button in the left-hand sidebar, right now, you see a list of all the files in our project. Right now, there's just one, called main.swift. Open it now. And you'll see that main.swift is just like we saw in our playgrounds. In fact, technically, main.swift works exactly the same way a playground does, and you can write the same code here that you would have written in a playground. I'll begin by deleting Hello World because we don't need it. To create a new Swift file, choose File, New, File. Make sure you choose Swift File from the menu that appears and choose Next. Give your file a name, My Great File, and click Create. If you would like to begin with the code that I'm providing you, download that code and choose File, Add Files to your project. Navigate to the code that you downloaded. In this case, you're looking for lesson 11-urls.swift and choose Add. Open that file now. At the top, you'll see that we've granted you permission to do whatever you would like with this file, as long as you don't sue us if it winds up taking over the world or burning down your house. In this file, you'll see I've created a function called lesson11 underscore URLs, and that function throws. We'll talk about exceptions and throwing exceptions in a later lesson. For today, just ignore that keyword. To get this to run, you'll need to make sure that you call lesson11 underscore URLs from your main.swift file. I'll double click on it, copy its name, and paste it in to main.swift. However, because this function can throw an exception, I need to add the keyword try before it. Now, when you press play to run your code, lesson11 underscore URLs is the code that will run. Of course, right now, there's nothing in lesson11 URLs. So let's move on to talking about URLs, Uniform Resource Locators. The URL that we're going to be using today is from the National Weather Service, who provides an API, that is, an application programming interface, that allows us to access current weather information. You can go to the website on your screen to see more information about their application programming interface. In particular, have a look at the Examples tab. In the Examples tab, they tell us that we can get the forecast by accessing this URL, replacing Office, Grid X, and Grid Y with our location. However, we don't know our office or grid location, so we can use this API to find our grid location based on our latitude and longitude. I'll copy and paste that into a comment in my code. The next piece of information we need is our latitude and longitude. If you happen to have yours memorized, type it in now. If, like the rest of us, you don't, I'd suggest doing an internet search for the name of your city or town and then latitude and longitude, like this for Norman, Oklahoma. Here's Norman, Oklahoma's latitude and longitude. I'll copy it into a comment in my code. Now let's create two variables, one each for the latitude and the longitude. Because Norman's longitude is in degrees west rather than degrees east, I need to put a negative sign before the 97. Next, let's construct a string the same way that the Weather Service has in our first comment. I'll replace their placeholders for latitude and longitude with the Swift style placeholders, changing the curly braces to a /parenthesis. Remember to do that once for each variable. Latitude and longitude are separate things. We now have a string that represents our URL, but it's not yet an actual URL that Swift understands is a location that information may be found. Let's create a URL from that string. In Xcode, I can get some help about functions by looking at the right-hand sidebar. If your right-hand sidebar is closed, click the button in the upper right-hand corner to open it. Click on the word string. Now, in your right sidebar, click the question mark, and you'll see some quick help. In particular, we see a declaration here that says, init question mark. That's telling me that my URL returns an optional URL. That is, it's possible that string URL might fail. It might not be an actual URL. In a later lesson, we'll learn how to deal with that potential failure. For now, we're going to ignore it, but I should warn you that this is not good practice, so we will be addressing this later on. Finally, let's tell Swift to go get the information from that URL. As you might guess, it's possible that this call will fail. The internet sometimes fails to give us answers. So we need to make sure that we mark this with a try statement. We'll learn much more about try statements later. Finally, let's print our response. Once you have all of your code written, with your latitude and longitude placed in, run your code. You'll find the results in the bottom right-hand corner. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see we have two more regions that we can toggle on and off. I'll toggle the left-hand region off to give myself more space now. If you look carefully through this list of information that has been returned to you, you will find your forecast office, your grid X, and your grid Y. Your challenge is to use that information to construct the URL that fetches your actual forecast data from the National Weather Service. See if you can get it working, and I'll show you my answer next time. Thanks, and have a great day.